Welcome to Instaul's classes. We at Instaul believe in democratizing education for one and for all. Welcome, students. Let's continue studying gender, religion, and caste in India. Let's see the caste in politics in India. Let's see the caste inequalities, a unique division. Caste division is unique to India. Why? Because unlike gender and religion, this is deeply rooted in social inequality and hereditary occupational division. So in India, this is very unique because we have some kind of division based in society, which was mostly on hereditary occupations. So we've got four caste or four varnas in our society, and people of the varna are differentiated due to their occupations. The caste system was sanctioned by rituals, leading to the formation of social communities that practiced the same occupation. They married within the caste. Let's give you an example. Let's take the example of potters. Potters are a caste in India and they practice the same occupation. All the people of the caste, they marry within the same caste and they do not mix with other caste groups. The system was marked by the exclusion and discrimination of outcast groups. There was another caste of groups which was called as outcast, which was not involved in any caste. That's why it was called outcast. These groups with untouchability, they were kept outside the villages and untouchability was practiced against them, which became a very prominent issue. Social reformers like Jyotiba Phule, Gandhiji, B.R. Ambedkar and Periyar Ramaswamy Naikar advocated for a caste-free society. Let's see changes in the caste system. Economic development, urbanization, and literacy and education have led to significant changes in the caste system. So everybody got literate, they got educated, they started moving to urban centers. That is when we can see there were a lot of changes in the caste system. The weakening of landlords and increased occupational mobility have contributed to the breakdown of old caste hierarchies. In modern urban areas, caste often plays a diminished role in social interactions. Why? Because in urban areas, everybody's moving into the same factory, going to the same offices. So caste distinction does minimize. Diminished role in social interactions and caste-based discrimination is prohibited by the Constitution. A century ago, the social landscape was vastly different, and the changes in India today would surprise someone from that era. So over 100 years, everything has changed. We have started industrialization. We've started going to offices. Men and women go to the same factories. Men and women also go to the same offices. Then people from the different varnas, that is the Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra, all these people you can see in colleges, all these people you can see in institutes. And that is why over 100 years, there have been a lot of social changes. Let's see the persistence of caste in contemporary India, that is modern day India. Despite these changes, caste has not disappeared. We still have the caste system in India. Many older aspects of the caste system persist. Most people continue to marry within their own caste or their tribe. If you have tribal India, they marry in their own tribe. And untouchability, though constitutionally prohibited, has not been completely eradicated. If you go to the very rural centers, go to the extreme PVTs. PVT means primitive tribes. You go to the vulnerable tribal areas, there is still caste system and still untouchability is practiced. Historical advantages and disadvantages continue to impact educational attainment, leading to a disproportionately large presence of upper caste individuals in the urban middle class. Caste remains closely linked to economic status, reflecting ongoing inequalities in access to resource and opportunities. Not just inequalities when it comes to caste, you have inequalities related to status, related to rank, related to education. These are all the challenges that are faced in India due to caste system. Let's see Instabites. Let's read. India's religious and social composition. There was a census of India which records religion of every person every 10 years, including those identified as no religion or atheist. So we have a census. Census means a counting of the number of people in every religion in India. Reliable data on the proportion of different religious communities is gathered, showing little change in proportions since independence. Why? Because at independence, only because of religion, we have a lot of partition. After independence, we can see Hindus, Jains and Christians have seen a slight decline, while Muslims, Sikhs and Buddhists have increased slightly. The belief that the Muslim population will overtake others is incorrect. Estimates suggest only a 3 to 4% increase over 50 years in the Muslim population. The population balance among different religious communities is expected to remain stable over the years. Let's see, the Census of India counts two major social groups, scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. What are these caste and tribal groups? SCs are also known as Adivasis. Adivasis means tribes, traditionally lived in secluded areas like only hills and deep forests. The SCs are the scheduled castes are often referred to as Dalits. They were historically excluded and subjected to untouchability within Hindu societies, or the outcasts. In 2011, the SCs made up 16.6% and the STs made up 8.6% of India's population in 2011. Together with other backward classes that come under OBCs, these groups form about 2/3 of India's population. Please look at the screen. Population of different religious communities in India in the 2011 census. So you can see over here that the majority are Hindu. Then we have Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, and the other 2% are mostly Buddhist and other religions. Please look at the screen. This is an illustration of a vote bank. How in politics there is a vote bank means if you are a leader from one religion, people or followers of the religion will be your vote bank. If you are leader of one community inside the religion, people or followers of that community will be your vote bank. Let's see the role of caste in political dynamics. Belief in casteism. Casteism is rooted in the idea that caste is the sole basis of social community. Casteism means what? Remember, casteism is also a philosophy which people practice. This is not in reality. No caste is superior to another caste or inferior to another caste. Casteism is done by people. That is why it is a belief system. It is a belief system. So casteism is rooted in the idea that caste is the sole basis of social community. It means you can become a community only based on caste, with members sharing common interests distinct from other castes. Caste is one aspect. While caste is a significant aspect of social experience, it is not the only or most important factor in influencing community and politics. Forms of caste in politics. Election strategies. Like I told you, political parties consider the caste composition of voters when choosing candidates. So if in a population of one area is SC population is in majority, so the candidate that will stand from the SC population will also be an SC. So what are they trying to do over here? This is kind of supporting casteism in politics. Political parties consider the caste composition of voters when choosing their candidates, ensuring representation from various castes to secure electoral support. Appeals to caste sentiment. Political parties often appeal to caste sentiments during elections, with some parties favoring specific castes as their representatives. Let's see the impact of universal franchise. Universal franchise means the right to vote. The principle of one person, one vote has led to greater political mobilization and awareness among historical marginalized castes, influencing their participation in politics. Now, let's see the misconceptions about caste and elections. No single caste majority. No constituency has a majority of one caste, so parties need broader support. Very true. That you need more support from everybody. There is never going to be a constituency of only one caste. Vote bank myth. No party secures all votes from a single caste. The vote bank means a large proportion of support. Multiple candidates. Parties may field multiple candidates from the same caste, and voters have diverse options. Power shifts. Frequent loss of elections by ruling parties shows caste preferences are not fixed. So, we have seen that power shifts from election to election, and we have seen that caste is not the only basis. Today's voter is much smarter. They look at other factors also when giving their vote. Influence of other factors. Voters prioritize party attachment, economic status, and government performance over caste. Please look at the screen. Here you can see that the upper caste refers to those who are not from SCs and STs or OBCs. Living below the poverty line means what? Spending rupees 327 or less per person per month in the rural areas and rupees 454 or less per person per month in urban areas. So if you cannot even spend that much money, you come under a category known as poverty line. So this is called as below poverty line. Now let's see, according to religion, what people come under the below poverty line. Let's see, economic inequality and caste. Historical impact: caste regulated access to resources, denying untouchable caste land ownership. So this was one of the historical impact where the untouchable caste did not get any ownership over resources like land. Education was historically restricted to twice born castes. Means the three Hindu upper castes were considered to be twice born. They believed that boys in these three castes are born first physically and second time spiritually. So therefore, education was available only for the first three castes. Explicit caste-based inequality is now outlawed. We do not follow it. Effects of historical caste advantages and disadvantages still persist. New forms of inequality have also emerged in this new society. Let's see the economic status. Caste still strongly influences economic status despite changes. Rich and poor can now be found in all castes. So now, firstly, it was only the upper castes who were rich and the lower castes, so-called lower castes, were poor. But now we can see rich and poor economic status in all the castes. Upper castes remain generally better off economically. Dalits and Adivasis are still economically disadvantaged. Backward classes fall between upper castes and lower castes in economic status. Let's see poverty distribution. Higher proportion of extreme poverty is seen among lowest castes. Upper castes have a significantly lower proportion of people in poverty. Why? Because they have a lot of access to land, a lot of access to resources, a lot of access to education. And backward classes experience moderate levels of poverty. So we can see over here less poverty, moderate poverty, extreme poverty in the lower castes. Caste-related poverty trends have persisted over time, and economic mobility is limited by caste for many. Let's see wealth representation. Upper castes are overrepresented among the wealthy. Lower castes are underrepresented in the wealthy class. Wealth inequality mirrors historical caste hierarchies. Disparities in wealth distribution are significant across caste lines, and efforts to bridge the wealth gap face challenges rooted only in the caste system. Let's see the interplay of caste and politics. How are they related and how do they work in today's time? Political influence in caste. Politics influence the caste system and caste identities by involving them in the political arena. So instead of fighting elections on the work they do, they involve these caste identities in the political arena. It is the caste that becomes politicized, not just politics that become caste breeding. Caste groups in politics. Caste groups expand by incorporating neighboring castes or subcaste previously excluded. Caste groups often need to form coalitions with other castes and communities, fostering dialogue and negotiations. New caste categories like backward and forward castes emerge in the political landscape. So now what we are seeing is that similar caste groups, like you can say the SCs and the STs, like you can see the OBCs. So these form one group and these form one group, or two castes can form one political group. That is called as forming caste groups in politics. Positive impact of caste in politics. Caste politics provide disadvantaged communities a platform to demand their share of power. It has helped Dalits and OBC castes gain better access to decision-making processes. Political and non-political organizations advocate for the end of caste-based discrimination and increase access to land, resources, and opportunities irrespective of caste. Let's see the potential negative effects. Caste-based politics can distract from other crucial issues like poverty, development, and corruption. So the real issues in democratic India are to solve poverty, to increase development, and to combat corruption. But sometimes, instead of focusing on this, because the person of the caste is becoming an elected representative, voters mostly focus on the caste-based politics. Excessive focus on caste can lead to tensions, conflict, and even violence in society. Now, we have seen in this chapter caste and tribal groups as the SCs and the STs. They form one of the disadvantaged groups in politics. We have seen their role in political dynamics, that because of caste also there can be a lot of caste representatives who want their vote bank to come from a particular caste, which also has positive and negative effects on politics in India. Interplay of caste and economic status, yes, we have seen that mostly it is the lower, so-called lower caste who are not in the wealthier bracket. It is only the upper caste, we can say, or the moderate caste which come into the working class or which come into the wealthy class. We have also seen misconceptions about caste in elections. Yes, we have seen that caste is always not the factor when it comes to choosing the elective, but power shifts from one election to other and they focus on many other factors other than a caste of that person. Inequality, economic inequality, like I told you, has been seen across various castes, but the Constitution of India now prohibits discrimination based on caste. Today, the Constitution of India provides everybody in India with equal opportunity and equal access to resources irrespective of caste. I hope, students, you have enjoyed studying this chapter with me. I hope you have understood how gender, religion, and caste works in India. I will see you all with another interesting topic and another interesting chapter. Please stay tuned to Instal's next video. Thank you.